Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Jo, and on this channel I create content about video editing and online freelancing. But for today's video, I wanted to talk about a recent camera purchase that I made. I want to share with you how I build it up into a rig that I use for run and gun filmmaking. Okay, so this is the camera itself. I just have a Smallrig cage on it with a hand strap here. This hand strap is really useful when the rig is fully built. So I wanted to start with the Smallrig base plate here. This is where you attach the 15mm rods. For this build, I don't actually use rods. I just have this base plate because the monopod that I use, it needs more clearance so that I can attach it to the monopod. So I attach it on this accessories base plate. I combine them so that I have higher clearance on the monopod. So let me just attach it here on the bottom of the camera right here. And this one attaches with 2 screws. It's very secure and it won't twist or turn. I just have these hanging on the sides there. Yeah, I mean, this base plate makes the rig a bit more chunky. I just haven't figured out a way to make that clearance work. So right now, this is how I build it. I really have to add this base plate at the bottom. It would be nice if I didn't have to add this base plate at the bottom, but how I have to work with it for now. Some might also say that since I have this base plate, I could just use rods, but I'll show you why I don't use rods and how I attach my battery solution instead of using the rods. Because you will see a lot of builds of this camera where they use rods and they have the battery on the back of the screen like that. But I use different way of mounting the V-mount. Okay, so now I have the base plates attached. Now, let's attach the battery solution. So this camera uses an LPE6 battery. It has a battery compartment right here, but the most common way of powering this camera that I've seen from other people is they use V-mount battery instead of using the LPE6 because this is a very power hungry camera and it just eats up the LPE6 batteries in like 30 minutes. So that doesn't really work because you have to bring a lot of LPE6 batteries with you. So just having one V-mount battery could last you for hours or maybe even a whole day depending on your situation. So this is more handy. This is heavier, which in my opinion can be an advantage or a disadvantage. The advantage is because the camera doesn't have in-body image stabilization. Making the rig heavier will actually lessen the shakiness of the footage. But the disadvantage is the rig is heavier. Because for me, I'm using a monopod. It's not really much of an issue because I just stand it on the monopod. So let's attach this. I use a Smallrig cheese plate with a V-mount clip here. This is the thing that's a bit different with this build is I put the cheese plate on top of the rig at the side here. It has 3 mounting screws on this side. I attach it like this with just 1 screw. It would be nice to use 2 mounting points, but then I would have to mount it like this and it would cover the power button, and it works fine even though it's just 1 screw that's holding this. It still works. It doesn't really twist, so that works fine. So I just tighten this here. It looks like that, the cheese plate on top of the cage. You might actually say that this is not a balanced rig. It is not a balanced rig because this side is heavier, but again, it's not really an issue for me because I use a monopod. I don't carry it handheld. Sometimes I also take it off the monopod, and if I have to shoot low angle, I take it off the monopod and go handheld. It's not really that heavy, so it's fine. So now that I've attached this cheese plate here, before I add the battery, what I do is I have the D-tap cable. I run this velcro zip tie on the side here like that. So when I actually break down the camera after a shoot, I don't remove this D-tap cable at all because it's already secured in place. I just leave it on the cage. Now that's attached. Okay, so now let's attach the lens, the Canon 17-40 f4L lens. Commonly, the lens combo that people use with this camera is the Sigma 18-35. Quite similar focal length. But for us to be able to use this lens, because this is a micro four third mount, I use the Viltrox mount adapter. So this is the EF2 micro four thirds adapter. This is a speed booster as well. When I attach this, the f4 lens becomes a 2.8 because you gain one stop of light using the speed booster. Now let's attach the lens to the camera body. Okay, so the next thing that we attach is the top handle right here. And the top handle goes here at the top, obviously. And it attaches with two mounting screws. This is one of the parts that I think could be improved with this rig. What I would love to have is a NATO rail top handle. I mean, this rig actually has a built-in NATO rail here, so having a quick release NATO top handle as well would be really good, because screwing these two screws when you're creating the camera package on set, wherever the venue for the events that I shoot is, this part is the most time-consuming part for me, because I have to screw this and then I have to unscrew it when I break it down. So when I have a NATO top handle, that would be very easy. But for now, this works fine. And also, having it screwed like that is also very secure. So I don't have to worry if it gets loose, if it suddenly is loosened and I drop the camera like that. I don't have to worry about that. I use an external monitor with the camera. Even though the screen, it's touch screen, it's big, you already have a good preview of what you're shooting. It's not articulating and it's really hard to see what you're doing or see what you're shooting when you're shooting like that. You can't see anything, so I have to attach an external monitor on it. This is a Smallrig friction arm, like a small dual ball head arm. Okay, so now that's attached. So the external monitor that I use is the Fieldworld F6 Plus. Sometimes I position it like that if I have to shoot low angle. It's very easy to see what you're shooting like that, and the screen is huge. So the battery goes here, so I can attach that now. This is how it looks. I can hold and focus the camera like this. Having this strap, even if you let go of the camera, it won't fall. It adds a bit more security. So everything is just powered from this battery right here. One thing that I learned from reading forums and from watching lots of videos about how to rig and how to use this camera, when you're powering everything from one battery, there is a risk of frying your HDMI because of ground loop. What it means is that since the external monitor and the camera is being powered from this battery, there is a chance for the power to travel from the external, and then the power fries your HDMI port on the camera. So to avoid that, always power on and power off the unit in sequence. You have to attach all the power cables first and then power on the camera and the monitor before you attach the HDMI. This is a USB-A to USB-C cable, so I attach it here on the USB port of the USB out of the battery. I run the cable to the external monitor. It has a USB-C port at the bottom there, and then I attach the 2-pin connector to the camera. I can turn on the camera. I can turn on the external monitor, and obviously it won't have any signal because there's no HDMI. I can attach the HDMI. This is also a Smallrig HDMI cable. One thing to prevent the ground loop is to use a high quality HDMI cable, and then I just have a right angle adapter at the end so it's not sticking out. So this is how I shoot for run and gun. For audio, I just use a Rode Wireless Go mic. So I just attach it to the mic port here, and then I just clip it on the hot shoe mount here. One thing I forgot is the storage solution. So another common setup is to use the Samsung T5 SSD. So it usually attaches here, but I opted to remove the SSD holder and go with the SD card storage instead. One advantage of that is I don't have another cable dangling on the side here, and I shoot in crowded places. There's a chance of hitting their hands on the camera unknowingly or something like that. So I use, I don't have it here, but I use 256 gig SanDisk SD card, and if I have to dump it, I bring my laptop with me anyway. Oh, and this one, the ND filter, you just screw on the front of the lens here. If you have any questions or if you have any suggestions of how I can improve this rig or this setup, let me know in the comments. I'd probably change this or swap some of the accessories around. For now, this is how I shoot it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.